In this video, I'll be talking about a few early game storage options for you, so let's get started. She be gaming. Storage can become an issue in Skyrim very soon after starting the game, especially if you're like me and have a hard time letting things go. If you don't plan on using mods to increase the amount of weight you can carry, and you don't plan on joining any of the factions, then you're going to need to find some storage solutions fairly quickly. Here are a few solutions I've used in the past. Riverwood is the first town you visit when you start the game, and there are two options here for you. Speaking to Fendal would be the first.
Riverwood's agreeable enough, I suppose, for a Nord village.
Fendal asks for your help in completing a fairly simple task.
He's a bard, so he says. Thinks his ballads and sonnets are going to convince Camilla Valerius to marry him. As if she would say yes. I've been thinking, maybe Camilla needs a little help seeing Sven for what he is. Could you give her this letter and say it's from Sven? I think I've matched that Nord's lack of cleverness perfectly.
Once you've agreed to help Fendal, you're going to take his letter to the local shop in Riverwood, and that's where you'll find Camilla to give her the letter.
Another poem, I bet. He does know how to make a girl blush. What's this? If that oaf thinks all I'm going to do is stay in that filthy house of his and clean, You can tell Sven that he already has a mother. I'm not speaking to him anymore. Until next time.
Once you've completed his task for him, you can then ask Fendal to become a follower. Once you do, in his inventory, he'll have a key to his home in Riverwood, which you can take. Using the Riverwood Inn as a starting point, Fendal's house is fairly easy to find. Once you do find his house, the key will unlock the door for you automatically, and certain areas in Fendal's house has been safe storage for me in the past. His house is fairly small, but honestly, you don't really need much more than this early in the game. Now, I've stored my items in his cabinets, side tables, and closet in the past, and they've been there for me when I've returned pretty far down in the game to collect. The only areas that ended up not being safe storage for me in Fendal's house were the barrels and his chests, so I wouldn't recommend saving anything in those areas, but everything else should be fine. You'll also want to make sure that if you decide to dismiss him as a follower, before you do, you go and collect any of your items that are still remaining in his house, because if you do leave them there, then it's quite possible they can go missing later on, because then technically they do become Fendal's property. There are also a few weapons in his home that you can also use to upgrade what you get at the beginning of the game, so also not bad. Storage option number 2 is also in Riverwood, and this time you're going to help Sven. Take the letter that Fendal gives you to Sven instead.
What is this? The elf playing a treachery? Shocking. As if I would write this dribble. Here, I had to use simple words, but this letter should convince Camilla it's from him.
Doing things this way makes Sven become your follower instead of Fendal, which I personally think is the better option. You get the key to his house, and he also has a few other items in his inventory that will give you a pretty good boost early on in the game if you take them from him. Travel to his home, which is located across from the blacksmith, and now you have some safe storage available to you really early at the beginning of the game. Pretty much within the first 10 minutes of the game, actually. His home is much bigger than Fendal's, but again, I wouldn't suggest storing anything in the barrels or in the chests because you will risk losing your items if you put them there. So, store them in the side tables and in the cabinets, and everything should be fine. If you have the edition of the game that also brought backpacks into Skyrim, then you'll probably find a backpack in Sven's home as well, which is going to be fantastic for you because that's an extra storage option there for you as well. So with Sven, we got a necklace that increased carry weight by 25 points, and now we have a backpack that increases it by another 75 points, which is why I think Sven is the better option if you're looking for more storage early game. He also has a few weapons available that you can grab if you're looking to upgrade here as well. Just remember that you have to choose between Sven or Fendal, and whoever you decide not to help, you'll lose as a follower for the remainder of the game. Storage option number 3 is going to take us straight to Whiterun. Whiterun has a few early storage options as well. If you're not really feeling Sven or Fendal, head to the Battered Mayor and look for Uthgerd the Unbroken.
Think you can go blade to blade with me? You'd be dead in 6 seconds.
She'll challenge you to a duel of strength, and once you've put her in her place and humbled her a bit, you can then make her become a follower. She has a home in Whiterun, so once you take the key to her home, you now have a storage place available for you in Whiterun as well. Her home is pretty decent for a starter home in Skyrim, and the nice thing about Uthgerd is that if you want to, she's a marriage candidate, so you could potentially marry her as the game goes along and have her home become your permanent home, which means you can then store things in the chests and barrels safely. While she's a follower, you also have a place you can sleep in a bed at night, which is a bonus. And this brings us to the fourth early storage option in the game, which is marriage. To marry, you'll first need an Amulet of Mara.
Is that an Amulet of Mara? I'm surprised someone like you isn't spoken for.
To marry Carlotta, you will first have to help her with a task in Whiterun, but after you do, her home becomes your home. And her home is pretty nice as well. She has a daughter, so hopefully you're ready for parenthood, but her house is pretty spacious, cozy, and offers some pretty decent storage space early on in the game for you. It also saves you the expense of having to purchase a home yourself, gives you time to save up more coin and upgrade when you're ready. Another marriage option in Whiterun is Ysolda. Her house is much smaller than Carlotta's, but still very cozy, and again, we're looking for places where we can basically dump all our treasures early in the game, so, you know, beggars can't be too much of choosers here. Let's look at some options for those who prefer to live in solitude, roughing it in the wilds. First, we're going to take a look at Anice's cabin. When you get there, you'll come across an old lady who claims to be innocent, but just trust me, take her out as soon as possible. I've used this cabin quite a bit for early playthroughs, and I've never had any issues storing my items in the cabinets or cupboards here. Side tables are good as well. I tend to stay away from the barrels like I mentioned before, but I've also stored items in her secret basement, and it's never been an issue, so give it a try. Let me know in the comments if you've used Anice's cabin and if any of your stuff has ever gone missing having done so. I'd be really curious to know. Next up, we have the Alchemist Shack. Be warned, there is a bear that is out for blood as soon as you arrive, so you're going to want to take him out first so that you can enjoy your new shack in peace and solitude. The Alchemist Shack isn't a very big player home, but it's really cute for an alchemist playthrough. I will warn that I don't believe the storage here to be safe long term, so if you are going to use the Alchemist Shack for short-term storage, I would say make sure you go back and collect your items before it respawns, which I think is every 30 in-game days you'll lose your items, so make sure you collect before then. Hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, I'd love it if you leave a like to let me know. Like always, thank you for spending this time with me today, friend, and I'll see you in the next video.